Hey guys, it's Luke from Mix It Made Simple, and today I'm going to be doing a track breakdown of the remix that I did. It sounds like this. So this track is called Anywhere, and it's by the group Anamē. It's an amazing track, amazing song. Really well written, amazing vocals. I would go check out the original right now. This remix was just for fun. They put their stems out, as a promotional type thing. I think they just gave their stems out for anyone to remix, just for the fun of it. And I'll post a link to my SoundCloud where you can hear the whole thing. And at the end of this video, I have the entire. I'll play the whole thing from start to finish and just kind of like zoom in and out of my project file. But this is going to be a walkthrough of, this is the first one I've ever done, so bear with me. It's going to be a walkthrough. I'm showing you some production stuff, some mixing stuff, and in this track, I used Diva, mostly Diva, and all of the presets that you're going to hear are all from Production Music Live. I started seeing these guys on YouTube like a little while ago, and I decided just to go ahead and get their, I think it was like their entire, their everything bundle, and I have no regrets at all. It's amazing. And if you make melodic house or techno or melodic techno, stuff like that, and you need some like relevant, awesome sounding presets for Diva or Serum, or you need some samples, or you want to check out they have some courses as well. I really like those guys, and it's so I have a link below if you want to check out their stuff. And like I said, all the Diva stuff that you see in this whole track, it's all Production Music Live presets. So go and check that out below. And also, I got my ebook that I'm giving out for free. Go ahead and get that. It'll save you lots of time and money, especially if you're a beginner music producer, and it'll sign up for my email list. And I'm working on some course stuff right now, a mixing course, so you'll keep your eye out for that. And anyway, that's everything. I hope you enjoy. Let's jump into the project. I'm gonna play the project file from the beginning, and if you want to hear the entire thing played through, I'm gonna put it on the end of this video where it's not me talking. I'm just gonna play the whole project file, kind of zoom in on some things as it goes. But I'm gonna go ahead and start, and I'm gonna just break it down from the beginning as it goes. I'll probably play a little bit and stop and then show what I did. So first, what we have here is these string section layered with a Diva pad. So I'll go ahead and play this. Basically, I'm using Omnisphere. They have this really cool string section. I use this quite a bit whenever I want to make like big lush strings. It's this Adagio Espressivo. It sounds like this. Let's see. Sounds really great. And then I layered that with, or I didn't layer, I used for the string melody, I went ahead and used the Spitfire Albion 1. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, which sounds like this. And for this remix, I just wanted to use the progression that they provided because it's such a great chord progression. So I didn't, with this remix, it's not like I entirely reinvented or anything. I did make the drop, as you'll see, is quite a bit different than the original, but yeah, the chord progression is all the same, and I use strings and stuff like that because it just sounds so good, and the songwriting's so good that I know it's like, why reinvent the wheel? Or it's already so good, why would I do anything to mess that up? So I'll play now from when the vocals come in.
Can we go far away to a room with a view? You could take me anywhere just as long as I'm with you. Live a life where dreams come true in a world that lets you breathe. You can take me anywhere just as long as I'm with you.
Here I have this little piano melody going. I just wrote this piano melody to kind of go along with the vocal. I should have kept it out during the vocal.
Can we go?
I think it adds something nice to it. And as you can see, as far as like the mixing part of it goes, I don't generally advise to do this if you're a beginner, but I have a makeup gain on, and then I have a slow attack, and sometimes I'll put the makeup gain on if I have a synth or something that's really quiet, and I just want to like make sure that it's loud enough. But as you can see, I pulled it back down to, you know, negative 24 dB. So if you're going to use compression, I would say in general, keep the auto makeup gain off, because when you pull down that threshold, it's going to get louder and you're going to think you're making it better, when really what you should do is you should compress something, listen to what you're doing to it, and then add your own makeup gain. But I pretty much knew what I was doing. I've just done it so many times. And so yeah, and I took some of the highs out. So let's see.
Can we go far away to a room with a view?
'Cause the thing is, another thing is, if you want to push things back, so if you look at a mix and it's 3D, or if you look at a mix tall, deep, and wide, so tall meaning the frequency range, deep meaning the depth, so how close something is to you versus how far back, and then wide is like the width, so like panning and stuff like that. If you look, if you want to push something further back, one really interesting thing you should keep in mind is that you can, if you EQ out the high frequencies, so the further something gets back in real life, like if you heard someone yelling from far away, it would sound muffled, like the highs would be cut out. And so if you cut out the highs on something, it gives the illusion that it's further back, and it doesn't make it sound like it's being EQ'd out. It just sounds like it's further back in the mix. And I'll go ahead and play the difference here.
Can we go?
So here's actually with EQ.
Can we go far?
Sorry. Here's with EQ.
Can we go far away to a room with a view?
Here's without EQ.
Can we go far away to a room with a view?
So you can see it still kind of works, but now it's kind of interfering with the vocal a little bit. So really, if you just, I went ahead and just filtered out a little bit of the highs, and then it just sits in a lot better. And then let's see, what do I have? I got Echo Boy. I really like big, I like piano with big delays. I usually use a ping pong delay and with like quarter notes, and just has it ring out for quite a while. I just really like that sound, that effect. And so yeah, and then for reverb, I just pushed up, I have send set up where I have a short reverb that I never really use that much, and then a long verb. And this is a way that we can use, if you want to have a sound in the mix that's up front and you want to add some parallel processing to it, you can add some reverb, and then you can send a lot of stuff to this reverb, and it's a long reverb. I'm using Valhalla Room. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning, the way my sends are set up, but sends and returns. It's a really long reverb, but then you can send stuff to this to have some reverb. So let's take a listen. So I can hear the piano well. It adds the reverb, and then if I send a lot of different instruments to this return track, it creates like a nice atmosphere and a cohesive reverb. Whereas if I just put a reverb on every single track, first of all, it's going to start to add up to the CPU, and that's annoying. But second, I can just use a return track for this long reverb time, and it works out quite well. So that's how I do that. And so that being said, let's take a look. So I've got this short reverb. Like I said, I don't use it very much. Usually have it on like 1 second. The long reverb, I usually use Valhalla Room, large room, 5 seconds. I just keep it at that. Delay, this is like whatever the stock Ableton delay. And then I usually put an Echo Boy on with ping pong delay. And I can see I have it sidechained a bit here. I won't necessarily always use this, but I just like to have it set up. And I don't even know what this one's doing. Another ping pong delay. And then I've got the New York compression, of course, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. But this is just a way, if I want to quickly add some parallel compression to something, I can just crank up this and then it sends it here. So I can just do it right now so you can hear it as an example. You can see I'm just playing the return track. It's just a really compressed version of that. You have to be careful, like I said before, with volume. So if I crank this up, it's going to get a little bit louder. Oops. But you can see the difference there. I actually kind of like it. Maybe I should have kept that in. Let's see.
Can we go far away to a room with a view? You could take.
See, actually, that's a little bit too much. I usually use New York compression if I just need something that when I add some compression to something with, but I want to keep the benefit of not having something compressed. Then that's a quick way I can do that. Something like especially like on drums, I'll do that. But let's keep going.
Live a life where dreams come true in a world that lets you breathe. You can take me anywhere just as long as I'm with you. You could take me.
And I wanted to have that effect of the bass and sub bass coming in right there. I think it's a really cool effect. If you can imagine this being played live, like right here.
Anywhere just as long as I'm with you. You could take me anywhere just as long as you're with me.
It's just a cool effect to have the bass come in. It's really lush. And I have this legato bass, Diva. And I just layered it in with I always use, because I've just had this for so long, my go-to sine bass is just the Nexus basic sine. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a overlap here with the sub.
You could take me, anywhere just as long as.
I'm using a little bit of decapitator, the distortion, get those harmonics up there.
You could take me, anywhere just as long as you're with me.
Now we're getting to the drop. Here we go. Break this down. This is kind of like a cool melodic drop that progresses. I had these Diva plucks, and a lot of times I'll actually I don't know if I might change this going forward, but in this case I have the pluck sounds, and I'll have a whole separate group outside of this labeled plucks, but I actually kind of liked keeping it in here because I have these groups set up where it's mids and highs, and I liked doing it this way because they are mid and highs, so I kept the plucks just within the mid and high group. So I have this thing going. It's another Diva, and let's see where I got it from. It says BTD Visions. So it's another. I just use all production music live packs in this. So it's from looks like a melodic techno, and just I really liked how the sounded. I'm not like a sound designer. I don't really know that a lot about designing a synth from scratch. I just like to go through presets, high quality presets, adjust them, and then pick what I like and go from there. So I have this thing, it builds up. Start on it. And I think the reverb that I have on it is just mostly the reverb that is in stock with the synth. And I have a little bit of, like, I pushed this atmosphere, or I pushed it, the reverb on my return track up just to add to that atmosphere. But if we pull this down, you can hear how it sounds. So I guess that reverb might not have been that necessary, but it's really all about the subtle effect that it adds. So I'll press that up again. And I have this transient master on here, adding some attack. Let's go ahead and see here how that sounds. Let's actually, I'm going to turn off the sidechain real quick. So you can hear it's kind of subtle, but it adds a little bit more of the like that pop, makes them just pop a little bit more. And a lot of times you see this compressor, I'll just have a slow attack compressor doing a little bit of compression just on a lot of things, just to keep it evened out, the dynamics, but where I still have like keep the transients and keep it coming through. So that's what's going on here. Okay, and now let's get to these arpeggiated, like atmospheric arps going on here. So yeah, this is, let's see what this is. Where is it at? Okay. It's like an effect. It's not even I don't even know what this thing is, but it sounded cool, and it's really high up in the frequency range, and which means you're gonna hear it pretty easily, but it's gonna be like in the background. It's kind of like a atmospheric little plucky type effect. So. Difference, right? So let's go ahead and play it. I'm just going to turn it off and on. And then I have these arps here, and I've got these panned hard left, hard right. I do the panning after all of the effects. And I've got, like I said before, EQ'd out highs and a lot of the lows. That way they're kind of pushed to the background. And if you pan them left and right, that's what gets that really wide. You can get a lot of width without having to do, with just with panning. And I have a thing with panning where if I have one thing panned hard left, I don't like it to be uneven. So I have to get another similar sound and then pan it hard right. But that's also works out because then it just gives me like a adds just more to the atmosphere. So let's see what this was. I had this muted, so I think sometimes I'll add stuff and then I'll just turn it off. Like if it's not actually adding anything to it, I'm like, well, do I need this? And I'll just turn it off, but I'll keep it around just in case. The really cool part of this drop is the bass. So I broke this down before in like a kick bass video, but right now, so I've got three basses layered, and the reason I do this is because layering just in general sounds good, but also if you have your sub layer, you can have a sub part of the bass, and then you heavily sidechain that. That way you have the sub coming through, but then you're still then you can EQ out the sub of your main plug, which I should probably EQ out even a little bit more than this. Yeah, there we go. And now I don't have to sidechain this one as much, so that you can hear it more. So you have the heavily sidechain pluck or sub to the kick. That way the kick's really coming through, the sub of the kick and the kick in general are really coming through. And then you have the top higher up part that you don't have to sidechain as much, and it comes through. So I'm going to focus more on this bass right here. So this bass right here, it's also Diva. I used pretty much Diva on like everything in this. I think I used a little bit of Serum. No, I think it's pretty much all Diva, but I found this cool bass. I really wanted a plucky bass. Like, I don't know, I wanted to have that plucky bass and have this pattern going on. And the cool thing, what I did was I automated the cutoff so that right here it really grows, opens up. I have some decapitator here. I really like the decapitator, the E button. So if we go ahead and I'll turn decapitator off and on, you can hear how it sounds. Play it, start it right here and hear it. Off. Turn on. So you can hear the decapitator is adding that nice effect. It's making the highs come out a little bit more, adding that nice, just saturated, slightly distorted sound. It sounded really good. And then I have EQ here. I already showed you that. I'm not sure why. I think I had this compressor. That's right. I have this compressor over here because when when it opened up, it was going to get louder automatically. So I wanted it to catch like I wanted it to automatically turn down the bass a little bit if it got too loud, basically. So if it's down here, you can see how it's pretty even when it's this pluck, but then when it gets up here, actually, now that I'm looking at that, I'm like, I already have this compressor doing that over here a little bit. So Well, I guess I didn't have the threshold lower enough, but that was the idea, was that I wanted to make sure to have, that's why I have this high ratio, because high ratio compression goes well with a threshold, basically not lowering the threshold very much, whereas like a lower ratio compression works better with bringing down the threshold a lot, if that makes sense. So like a high ratio, if you just compress a little bit off the top, it works well, versus if you have a 4:1 ratio, it's like you want to bring it down, the threshold down more. And then I have OTT, and honestly, to be honest, when I use OTT, I'll put it on there. I use it strictly as like an effect. Like, I just like the sound that it gives. I'm not doing it for some dynamics control. I'm literally doing that to make the bass like stick out more, give it that OTT sound. And so I'll put it on there, and I always lower the depth down to like 20 or low. It's like, so let's go ahead and take a listen. I'll play it right here. I'll turn it off. Let's play it again with it on. Now I'm going to play it from right here, and then I'll just turn it on, off and on as it plays. So you can hear what it's doing there, right? So let's see what happens if I turn all of these off. I'm going to group them. And oh, and also I have this reverb here, which I don't usually reverb a bass, but in this case it's that big, the bass is kind of like the focal point of the drop. So I wanted to add some reverb and just really make it sound big. And so I just used the Valhalla room again. And I brought down the, what's it called? Pre-delay. But here, I'll play it up here. I just thought it sounded better when I brought the pre-delay down a bit, so that's what I did. So now I'm going to group these together. Now watch what happens when I turn all of these effects off and then turn them back on again. Now with the effects on. All right, so you hear the difference there, right? That's a lot better with the effects. And that's really what it's all about, is adding these little, adding the effects that kind of add up to make something just sound a lot better than what it originally sounded like. I mean, maybe, like I could maybe use that sound, I guess, but for when I was mixing the track, this is the sound that I ended up wanting. It's just like crunchy and in your face and big and yeah, sounds pretty good. So let's go ahead and unsolo this. Oh, and I could just take a look at this other mid bass that I have here. This is really just here because I'm layering the basses. I just wanted to fill out the middle, like the mid bass, just to have more control over the bass. And I didn't make it this octave, like this is like octaves like this. I just made it straight up one octave, the same rhythm. Let's go ahead and hear how it sounds together. Okay, so anyway, that's the basses. That's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and keep playing it. looked at the basses. I'm gonna go ahead and freeze them. Because the CPU is starting to get a little bit high, and I want to be able to finish this and not have it crackle. So I'm just gonna, I'll edit this out, skip ahead. Okay, so we get to the second breakdown.
Can we go far away to a moonlit perfume? You could take me anywhere just as long as I'm with you.
And then really all I have that's different is I get to this little, like, kind of cool little halftime drum thing. Oh wait, it's right here.
Live a life where dreams come true in a world that
I
lets
put these rim shots in here. I just like the sound of like a rim shot like this in the background.
Live a life where dreams come true in a world that lets you breathe. You can take me anywhere just as long as I'm with you.
Like the main part of this new part is this piano. I'm using this Nexus piano. Maybe it's like a little outdated of a piano, but I layered it with some other piano. Got some heavy compression, but with a slow attack to really place it like up front, but then also have that long reverb, so it's like kind of because it's a lead sound and I really want it to be heard. I wanted it kind of in front, but still like a big delay or a big reverb. I mean. And then so when the drop comes in, it's like this big cool drop, and you know it's really uplifting. Cool thing I did with the strings at the end was I actually, and you have to really think about this, like dynamics. It really adds a lot to music, and that's the difference between the louds and the highs, you know, or it's how the dynamics is like the way I have these strings is that it hits and then right here it actually swells to the end, and so where do I have that? You see this? Just this little thing right here. So strings hit, and then it's actually growing and gets louder and kind of floats away. So let's go ahead and take a listen. So that's pretty cool. It makes a difference. So it's a cool ending. I'm trying to think of anything else I didn't go over. The vocals, I didn't do anything to them. I added like a little bit of air, fresh air, because they were already processed. I just have waves, like effects. This is just white noise stuff. It's a mix of stuff I've already had. It's a lot of splice. You know, you see the cashmere stuff in there. Splice sweeps. And the drums, it's just stuff I got from Splice. And then what are these? These might be from, I think this is all stuff I got off Splice. yeah, like the Zenizer. I think I got this from like a melodic techno Sennheiser kit. I just thought it sounded pretty cool. I got quite a bit of reverb on it, and oh, to my drums, I've got some parallel processing going on. So I've got this Ableton effect rack. I've talked about this in my other video on parallel compression, but I have some really heavy glue compression, or really heavy compression, some EQ, and then I have this chain here, which is the dry signal. So if I play that, let's play it here. Now if I play this, it's really heavily compressed, and I boost the highs, and then you combine them. Now let's turn the whole thing off. And turn it on again. You see how that just like lifts them all up? It gives it a little bit more life. It's like they're a little bit closer together when it comes to dynamic range, but it's still punchy and sounds good. And yeah, that's like the beauty of parallel compression right there. Let's play it one more time so you can hear that again. So without. And with. Now I'm playing with the whole track. Sorry, I'm starting to crackle up there. I had no issues with CPU earlier, but then I think I have some Chrome tabs open or something. So now I'm having issues with CPU. So that's the drum group. And then I keep the kick drum usually all on its own because I like to process the kick drum just completely on its own. And a lot of times kick drums will come already compressed and all that. So you can just have it like alone by itself, set the volume, like set it and forget it. And then produce around that or mix around the kick. And then if you have to come back later, you could EQ or whatever. But this kick just sounded so good on its own. This is a Big Z kick. Big Z, you've probably heard of him. Awesome producer and YouTuber, and he has his own sample packs. And this is like an amazing kick, and he's got a really amazing samples and stuff. I'll probably put like a link to the description below so you can get his stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole track. Looking at, I just have like on these instruments, I put a decapitator on just for like some saturation. Let's play it over here. But I can barely, I'll put it on E because I like it, and then barely press the drive up. It's literally, it's like, I think about it as if I'm just running it through some analog gear to add some nice saturation. That's what this decapitator, that's what I do. It's like, it's really subtle, but it just gives this a little bit of lift and warmth, and it's real nice. Okay, so yeah, that's the group there, the bass group. I'd also did a little bit of parallel compression with the bass group, and here's the last thing I'll talk about. I have this side chain here, and it's just like a click sound. I don't want to play it because it'd be really loud. It's like a snappy, it's like a rim shot. And I don't know, for a while I heard other producers, they would have like a dedicated sidechain ghost note playing a whatever so they can sidechain stuff to it. But now, I don't know, I don't really see why it matters to not, I don't know why you can't just sidechain stuff to the kick drum. Like for me, I feel like you get a lot of control that way, and I ended up just sidechaining a lot of stuff to the kick drum in this. But I know that a lot of producers, they like to have like a consistent sound that they sidechain to. So I don't know. I'm going to probably go back and forth between doing this and sidechain to the kick. But yeah, so I'm just throwing that out there. That's why this is here. I think I used a mix of it in this project, and I think that's covers almost everything. I'm trying to think if there was anything else in here. Yeah, I just got some effects, some pitch rise stuff, and that's pretty much it. You can see it's oh, I didn't use any when I was mixing this, when I was producing and mixing, I didn't use any reference track. You know, this wasn't like this remix was kind of just for fun. It's just going to my SoundCloud. They gave out the stems, you know. It's not like I'm getting an official release, so I just was like, it took me a few days. I got it done. I wanted to see how good I could get it to sound with no we're mixing it without any reference at all, and I think it sounds pretty good. If I was gonna try to make it like absolutely perfect, and if it was like an original and whatever, I'd probably, when I mastered it, I'd probably would reference and really EQ and have some reference tracks that I'm working with, because it's like, why not? You know, if you've got professional stuff to reference out there, you might as well do it. Speaking of that, we can check out the master. That's one thing I almost forgot. I got Pro Q here, rolling off the basses that don't matter. I should probably have actually started this around 35. Maybe make it a steeper cut, because anything below 30 hertz, 20 hertz doesn't really matter. And then I've got some side, mid-side processing. So then pretty much anything below this curve down here is getting turned into mono. So that's why that's there. And then I just have a brick wall just cutting off anything above 20 hertz, because it's the same thing. It's just, you're just giving yourself headroom, because you don't need, you can't hear any of that. And so it just doesn't matter. And then I have this compressor here, and this is just, where'd I go? I kind of played with having like a limiter or just like a 10-to-1 ratio or whatever, but I have this here, and it's literally just to cut off the peaks. So it's like the kick drum pretty much. Later on, it actually does start to, it gets, you can see it's not quite reaching, but I have that there because you can basically catch the peaks, which then makes it easier to really push the loudness once you get to the limiting. I've got this PSB just saturator on here. Let's go ahead and play it and listen to the difference with that off and on. So it is adding a bit of loudness, but it's also just it's just like a little bit of saturation to go on the master. I had the sausage fattener here that I'm not using, because you can, the idea here was I was going to do some clipping and then go into limiters, but what I did instead was I'm playing around with using 2 limiters. So I got this limiter here, and then finally going into this Pro L, and I'll get more into limiter settings later, but I'm basically using 2 limiters because the idea is a lot of people do this because you can, it just takes the workload off of putting it on one limiter. And it's like, an analogy is like, you know, do you want one guy trying to carry like 200 pounds or like 500 pounds of weight on his back, or 200 pounds of weight on his back? It's like, no, it'd be better if you had 2 guys and they each had 100 pounds. It just, it gives you more flexibility, makes it easier on the final limiter, and then yeah, and you'll see when, and later on, I think at the loudest I'm getting to like -7 When I'm mastering, I shoot to like a -8, a little bit -8 and -7. You know, for this type of music, -8 is just fine. It is EDM, so it's going to be really loud. But then, I don't know, you know, like this kind of track is different than like a Skrillex track or like some crazy dubstep bass track, which they're trying to get to like -4 LUFS or LUFS or whatever you call it, or -6. So -8, -6, I think somewhere in there is good. And yeah, that pretty much covers it. That's pretty much everything. I got SonarWorks, and yeah, that's the walkthrough I did of this remix. So it took me a few days. I hope you enjoy. Like I said, I'm going to play the entire just playthrough at the end of this video. So if you want to check that out, Go ahead and do that now.